So I know I can spend a lot of time worrying. I've also found it generally does not net me anything. Generosity, growing up, it wasn't discussed. And so I didn't have really an understanding. When we started kind of working through our generosity, it was, quite honestly, very linked to the chain of money, right? And giving it up versus giving it away. And that was a struggle.
I didn't come from a family that was generous, so to speak. They gave a lot, but they certainly didn't give money, and money was often used as a form of control within the household. So when we first started giving, it was very much, this is what our income is, and this is what we can afford to give. And over the years, we've evolved in many ways, but we didn't evolve when we had the highest paychecks, and we didn't evolve when we had the most ability to give, like, oh my gosh, we should just give this away. We actually came to our belief in generosity when we had the least, and we needed to lean into God the most. So I would say that I've coined it before, called stress giving, but I wouldn't necessarily suggest it. But at the same time, it freed us the most.
It did.
It was the most liberating giving we've ever done. And what that ultimately did was taught us about how abundant God really is.
As we remember back to one of our toughest times, and the release we received by the giving that we gave, and how it didn't change our lives, right? I don't remember missing something on that year, but I do remember, and I'll never forget the joy that the weight that actually would come off the shoulders when, as you called, stress giving, but when we let go.
If you approach the giving in a receiving kind of way, you're not subtracting out of your own budget. You're actually multiplying your budget in ways in which God will show up, and He will provide. And I can say we've seen it. I can say we've seen it. He will provide. He always provides.
Well, we get to the other side of that, the release, the joy, and the connection that comes with giving, has been tremendous, and it has allowed us to push ourselves, I think, further.
There's a fear in giving because it's coming out of my bucket. It's one less thing I can do in my household. It's one less thing that my kids might get, and that's, let's face it, it's hard in Darien, Connecticut, to look at giving away a large sum of money to something that doesn't necessarily net you a gain. That being said, the other side of it is the gain is so much more deep when you see our partnerships and fellowship here, when we see what the church is able to do, when we see how the blessings multiply. And we have great examples here in this church of, last year I heard the story of Hannah being able to give over 2,000 Christmas gifts to kids who never would have one. And I can't listen to that story without tears in my eyes, thinking about that little child who doesn't have a Christmas tree, who might only have one parent, who barely has clothes and isn't clean, and he's receiving this gift that truly is from God. To be a part of that it's humbling.
When I think about this church, I think about our community, I think about the many blessings we have as a community, but we have these children that need to be raised, and to create children that can be servant leaders, that can have the spirit of the church in their life, and then go out and be leaders in this world. Like, we are creating the next generation, and this, doing that from inside of this church with the team we have, with the structure we have, is, I think, is one of the greatest quote unquote investments that we can make.
Yeah, and I'll go a little bit deeper. Our pastors and all the hands and feet that help our pastors get to where they get to are highly committed to this community. If it's knocking on the door of someone who recently lost a loved one, if it's showing up to a sports game, if it's a text, they do all of that in an instant, and have often dropped everything to come to a celebration, either of life or in life. And so when we look at giving, we see it on a daily basis. In all of our giving and in our evolution coming to this, we never, as Dave said, we never lacked for anything. So I would say jump now.